primarily in book imagery in the middle 16th century. On the left is a lettercaster. On the right is a early letterpress workshop. You can see that this is about 50 years after this book being published, but the same thing was applying. And this is actually some of the earliest imagery that we have of these workers doing the things that they do. At this point in time, this would have been a highly secretive process of making. This information wouldn't have been out. This is, as Brian mentioned, we also can't talk about printing without talking about this guy, who is Johann Gutenberg. Gutenberg was the creator, sorry, I have a bronchial issue, so if I cough, I apologize. This guy was the Western world innovator of movable type. There was a Chinese system set in place 500 years earlier, but we don't have time to talk about that. What he did do is he created the hand mold and metal type foundry, which is how we got to where we are now. This is his Gutenberg Bible, which was fully printed sometime between 1454 and 1455. This is our book, and the reason why I want to compare these two, A, is because you can notice these large illuminated letters, the O and the M. You can also see the red text. So red text at this point in time, all points in time, is called rubrication. Rubrication would be something that is very, very specific information, or it would also tell us that there is a subject shift or something really important that we need to know about. The interesting thing about our book is that we have these shifts, but we don't have any color rubrication. So to me, what that says is it was made for a very particular population. That population would have been for not necessarily the upper echelon of the class. This would have been a book that would have been passed along, as Brian said, within a school or within a library where many people may have read it over the course of time. You can see the essence there. This is, I just wanted to show another example also. I picked something from Venice, 1490, typically a incunabula, that you can see little tiny letters like a B, and actually I can't see from here, I think it's a T, might be an F. Those are cues for illuminators, scribes, or for people that have imagery that would go in there to place larger blocks of type. So we can go back and see ours, and we can say, oh, that's actually larger type that they have set. So this isn't a Word document, right? This is all hand set. Every single thing is a little tiny piece of metal that's placed upside down and backwards. If you look out in the case, you can see some examples of it. So you have to think about the way that these people are paginating. I'm already halfway done. Rubrication. This is an extreme example. It's a missile. So you can see the music on the side, left, red, black. In addition, bookbinding. So again, Yost was great because he was the first person who printed a bunch of examples of the way that we made things. So he has these 10 prints of the book world. So these are the book binders, and you can see somebody in the back left corner, that's somebody actually sewing onto cords. In the front area, that's somebody probably cleaning down edges. You can see a giant battle axe, which I'm assuming has to deal with ogres or monsters of some sort. I don't know exactly what battle axe is for. So our book, which is very interesting, also Brian mentioned, is that it has been trimmed down. So if we look on the head of the book, we see headbands, or headbands. If we look on the tail of the book, we see a notable absence of a headband. And that's because it's been trimmed off. So that says that it has been bound, and then at some point in time, in the future, it has been rebound. Because there's no purpose for a headband to only be on one side. A headband had a very particular purpose at that point in time, and that was to keep the book together and to keep it from pulling apart when we pulled it out of a stack. This would be an example. You can see it typically is two different colors. This is a deer skin, so you see leathery, meat horribleness, but the color thing is prominent. We can also see speckling. So, the fact that it's been trimmed down, the fact that we see some of that marginalia cut off, the fact that we see the end bands, or headband tail cut off, but the speckles aren't on the three sides, says that it was speckled after it had been rebound, which meant that somebody was trying a little bit. They're like, this is a good book, I want it to look sexy, I'm going to put some color in it. So they did, and that's what it is, and you can see it out there. But we can see much greater examples of marbling, and then if you want to get really in depth, and this was much later in time, 18th, 19th century, you can even 4-inch painting. But that idea was that it was something that people would stop and recognize. We're thinking of the object, and even at the beginning with the book, not necessarily being fetishized, as time went on, it became something of power, right? And there is truth to that. Like, word, in the beginning there was the word, right? The word is the power. We just wanted to see it more relevantly as we got older. And finally, we need to talk about paper. So this book was made on paper, not vellum. So by the 16th century, paper was prevalent. Paper making came from China, which is also where printmaking came from. It slowly made its way across the countries over the course of centuries, and ended up in Spain in the 11th century probably. But by this time, papermaking was prevalent, and that was done with cotton, paper, and rags, and unfortunately, the clothes of the dead was made to make beautiful, beautiful, beautiful paper. Early on, it was very, very expensive, but when letterpress and when binding became a big thing, it became the production of choice. So vellum was what it was used before, which would have been tiny, tiny, cute baby goats. But if you think about how many goats have to be made to make this level of books, it no longer becomes economically viable. So paper did become economically viable. This last image, I'm almost done, is a watermark. So the watermark tells us who the papermaker was. I'm really close to being able to tell us who the papermaker was for this book. Not yet, but I'm close. And so this is a negative of the watermark. So you can see an ED, and then you can see a little P, and then a PM. So very shortly, we'll be able to identify the papermaker of this book, even though the end pages and the interior pages are different. I'm out of time, which is why I'm out of breath. Beth is up next. Thank you very much.